right, welcome back. Let's jump right in. I think it's always good, and I've seen some studies on like when you're training to go back and retrain stuff, and me included. And I start getting on these rants, I start getting on these discussions about things, and I forget to go back to the basics, to be brutally honest, with myself and with the people I'm working with. And so what I want to talk about this week is this term, patient experience, client experience. Okay. I want to define it again for you and talk about it in some more context, because I think it's good as we're going through like secret callers, as we're going through arrive, pay, and stay. It's good to understand the foundation of the work and where this all comes from and why the foundational work is so important. So let's jump right in. This patient experience, frequently it gets equated, and you'll see me do it, right? It gets equated with like other businesses, like the Disney experience, the, Amazon experience, the Chipotle experience. I'm just thinking about all these different things, right? And it's really important that you understand the context of that word experience. So here is the definition that I love, and I'm just going to use it this way today, is an experience. So if I'm going to say your patient experience, your client experience, take it in the context of this. It is the story that your potential client, because it's whenever they're touching you and your brand, it's the story your potential to then patient or client creates in their head as they are moving through the journey in your business or practice. So the client, I'll use it without using the interchangeable terms. It's just called the patient experience this time through. The patient experience is the story that the person is building as they are moving through your business. And the story, right? If they're experiencing it, if they're creating it, it's an emotional journey. So the patient experience is the story they create in their head while they are moving through their journey with your business. Cool, Jerry. I think it's really, really important to really solidify that in your head, because as I said, Amazon experience, Disney experience, Chipotle experience, these are emotional occurrences. These things are emotional. And then I'm going to ask you this question. Can we control the experience? Does Amazon control the experience their customer clients have? Does Disney control the experience their clients or customers have? Right? Does Chipotle control the experience their clients or customers have? And yes, they do 100%. And it took me a while to figure this out, because if it was emotional, I was like, we can't impact that. But it's because I didn't understand this step before, which is Amazon, Chipotle, and Disney all understand the journey that their customer clients are on within their business. So step number one, for you to create an experience that draws people back, that creates positive emotions, that has people going, that felt good, that was good, that was different. I love the word "that was different" in this context of healthcare. I love reviews that start with "that was different," because they're always good, my friends. When we read these reviews and they're all emotional, that is because the experience this person had was positive. And I challenge people all the time to go back and read, just go online and read as many reviews of physical therapy, chiro, dental, audiology, vision centers, whatever reviews you can, and tell me how many people actually got the result, the desired outcome they wanted. And what I'm going to say is you'll be able to answer that question less than 50% of the time. I love to read reviews and then review them with other people and go, well, did this person get better? And there's always this gut reaction of, yeah, it's a positive review, so yes, they got better. And I say, tell me where it says in that review they got better. Because I'll review the review with them, and I'll go, this is all emotional. This is all subjective stuff. right? They listened, they communicated well. What a great experience. I'd recommend it to anybody. The team was so kind. The team listened from the moment I called in till the moment I left, right? They made sure I was put first. They get better? We have no idea. My answer usually is we have no idea. And I'll tell you where this comes in is when you start to get referrals and you start to get word of mouth referrals from people who didn't get better, AKA didn't get the desired outcome they wanted. And this happened in my journey. And I started questioning why, because I thought the only thing that drove word of mouth referrals was positive outcomes. Outcomes in the manner of I got back to the goals I came here with. And I found that not to be true. And I learned this when I was answering the first phone call, and people would tell me, yeah, I heard about you guys from an old patient, Steve Smith. And I'd go, great. So glad Steve shared our name and his story with you. So, Jerry, if you don't mind me asking, here's the kicker, my friends. What is it Steve said to you that got you to call us? The answer to that question was rarely related to the outcome. Again, less than 50% of the time. So this experience we talk about, this thing that we know differentiates us, we have control over. Even though it is people's emotions, even though it is made up in their head, and by made up, I mean it's their experience, right? It's what they feel at the time. That's what I mean by made up, right? We can control that if we know the journey that our client, patient, customers go through in our business practice. And by journey, I mean, right? How did they find us? What happened when they called us? What happens next? 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 That's your client's life cycle, your patient's life cycle that you hear me ranting about all the time and I reference all the time. That's the life cycle. And that's why I talk more about that than the word experience. I think if you guys go back and look at my post, you'll see I talk a lot more about the life cycle because that's the first step. And I get a lot of people going, yeah, we created this great experience for our patients. And I have them talk me through it. And I'm like, it sounds to me like you haven't fully grasped the journey they're on, right? If you're not tracking where leads come from or how many leads a month you have, regardless of scheduled or not, then you don't know your patient's journey because you can't track it back. All healthcare outpatient practices are great at tracking new patients. What they're not great at is tracking leads. And if you had 50 new patients this month, but you had 100 leads, there's a boatload of valuable information in those 50 people that didn't schedule. I disagree with people who say your most valuable, the most valuable feedback is from the people that didn't schedule. I think that original quote by Bill Gates was taken out of context because they're not. The most valuable feedback is the people who arrive, pay, and stay. That's a tough one to argue. Yet there is valuable information in the people who don't schedule. Let me give you a quick example. I used to track all this, right? And I used to just perseverate over this list incessantly, the scheduled, the not scheduled, but looking for the trends, right? So understanding their journey, where'd they come from, how'd they hear about us, what did they hear? This is part of the journey they are on. Now, we can't control that part. This is where I had this all flipped. I thought we controlled the journey. Oh, this is how people schedule with us. This is how people call us. But we don't control that journey, right? We make all these access points and then people choose. What we can control is the systems we plug into every step. That then creates the experience we want. So play that back again, or I'll say it again. We can't control the journey. We can control parts of it, right? The physical space, the way it looks, the way it smells. Sometimes we can't control where people park or if there is parking. So all these things, right? So once we understand that journey, then we can insert systems and processes to manage and create that experience we want. Let me give you the perfect example again. On the front end, if we don't have parking, no matter where you are, I've dealt with this in rural areas and in cities. If we don't have parking, then we build in the systems and processes on the front end so people understand where to park, what to do when they arrive, which does what? Creates a positive experience. We set an expectation How many times have you shown up somewhere and there was no parking or you didn't know where to park? Frustration, right? Uncertainty, agitation, maybe a little angry. Now you're running late, right? All these emotions start flowing and they're all negative. That is creating a negative experience. I didn't know you didn't have parking. That's a great example. And by the way, that's part of the process that I ended up building out, because some of our offices had parking and some didn't. So on the first phone call, we set the expectation because we understood patient's journey, because we understood after they scheduled, after they got their paperwork, after they got their reminder call, when it was time to arrive, they were going to have to show up to the building, right? So we built in the systems upstream to manage and set those expectations around the experience we wanted. And really, if the whole experience, by the way, this is all in hindsight, the experience we created at San Francisco Sport and Spine Physical Therapy when I was doing all this work was no surprises. And the no surprises mindset really helped us to go, what can we do this step before? Because usually surprises only occur, right? You can't fix a surprise at that moment in time, right? Good or bad. Can't fix it, can't address it. You can only own it. So it was always, what could we have done? My team got great at this, especially my front desk team. What can we control? By the way, my team helped me to basically obliterate and eliminate, which means never zero, but eliminate all of our billing problems. My front desk team helped to eliminate the billing problems. Because when it came time to write up the financial policy and start figuring out how we were going to manage the conversation on the first phone call, my front desk team brought back to me everything they were hearing from the new patients walking in, all the negative things, all the positive things. And we bundled all those things up and implemented what we needed on the first phone call. This is brilliant. And again, this is not me. This is me finally, after 10 years, going to my team and asking them for help and finally figuring out I wasn't the one with all the answers. And the longest running, we changed accountants and financial policies more than anything else in my business. You heard that right. Accountants and financial policies. The financial policy that lasted the longest and was still in place till I left and even the next person left was the financial policy put together by my front desk team. The people who were having to talk to the client arriving, the customer arriving, the person who was having to talk to the clients upstream on the new patient phone call. So again, I'm using that example of creating an experience of no surprises. And this experience of no surprises actually pays off if you think about it, because that means people, when they arrive, they're ready for arrival. When they get their cost, they know their cost. And even moving the cost upstream. That was another thing about no surprises. We used to provide people's cost and insurance information when they arrived. And based on my front desk feedback, we moved it upstream. And we put together a policy and process for getting everybody their cost. You heard that right? Cost 48 hours before their scheduled appointment. And so we built out a system for that. We controlled by understanding their journey within the business, right? The call to arrival and all the steps in between. We could create the processes and systems to create the experience we wanted of no surprises. We wanted people on the schedule to be set up for success, AKA arrival. What did we need to do? Well, we decided we need to because we had people show up, get pissed off and leave, right? Which hurts not only the business, but it hurts the patient. It's a waste of time, money, and energy on both ends. Now, I'm just talking about like the first 4 steps. Then we have arrival, then we have evaluation, then we have follow-ups, right? You got to understand your patient. You got to understand when those EOBs go out. When your billing statements go out versus when they get the EOBs, because we put together processes, right? And timed the mailing of statements around them getting their first EOBs. We also set up in the financial policy telling them when they got an EOB, we wanted to hear from them. Why? We just want to know if there were any issues. Were there issues? Check this out. This is what I love about the no surprises thing is you think about the answer to that question. Were there issues with the EOBs? Because the answer is I have no idea because I can't control the insurance company. This is the other beauty of understanding your patient's journey and then creating a experience, building the systems and processes and to create the experience you want. You understand quickly what you have control over and what you don't. You don't have control over anything the insurance company does. So our first phone call on our financial policy stated that exactly. It also stated we are more than happy to help you with any mistakes or errors by your insurance company. So when I asked, right, that we followed up with the EOVs, if there were any mistakes, we weren't so much asking them if there were mistakes. We were asking them, was there anything we could help you understand better on there, right, that didn't quite work out? And it was rarely yes. And my default was we didn't fix insurance billing. We fixed the expectation of the person who was looking at that EOB. No surprises. Your patient's experience is the story they are creating in their head while they are on their journey with your practice business. This story is emotional. It's emotions, right? We can control the experience someone is having in our business by first understanding their journey in our business, then creating systems and processes along the way to deliver the experience that we want them to have. That is the magic, my friends. That is what Disney does. That is what Amazon does. That's what Chipotle does. That's what every great business does. Where I really learned about this the most and have read the most on, and on a couple books I read on this, went back to over and over, was Charles Schwab, the online finance broker. My friends, they have like 30 different ways people can come into their business, and they knew every one of them. And they understood the next step and the next step and the next step. And I was like, my Lord, if these people can do it. At the time, I only had like 2 or 3 ways people could come into my business. I'd still argue there's probably only 3 or 4 more. But at that time, I only had like 2 or 3 ways people could come into my business. So I read that over and over, and I was like, this is absurd. There's no reason why we can't understand this better. So when you see someone talking about a great experience they had, they're talking emotional, subjective, right? When you see me preaching about creating an experience and that's your differentiator, what I mean is you know your business front side to back side, inside and out better than anybody else, right? You know what to measure, you know what to look at, you know everywhere where they can find you, you know every way they can get you, you know how they move from marketing to sales to retention to referral, you know when the welcome email goes out, you know what the financial policy says and why. The why is really huge here, right? Because anything you tell me you do in your business, I do this all the time, front desk people, clinic managers. Why? The dead air is a huge tell, my friends. Why do you do it that way? Why do you do that? I'm going to finish with this, one of the best why questions I ever asked, right? I had a front desk person. I was asking a lot of questions around the way they were managing the first phone call. And that was, you hear it every day, but it's the first day I really remember encountering this, right? Well, all people care about is their insurance. I was talking to a front desk person about first phone call. And I looked at them and I said, why do you think that is? And I got a couple of answers from them, and I had secret called the office and I said, maybe it's because you brought it up before I did. So again, was she right? Was she wrong? I don't know. Was I right? Was I wrong? I don't know. But the whole thing was, how does this, right? How does this begin someone's journey? This is very early on. What is the experience we want to create? Well, we're different, we're better. So why are we asking people about insurance first? Even if they want to know about insurance, why are we asking about them first? Again, why? Why? Why are you bringing it up so soon? People want to know their insurance, right? So the question why, and then it's like, that statement isn't wrong, but why do they want to know it, and where in the conversation does it have to happen, right? So again, if we understand their journey, If we understand the experience we want to create, which is a focus not on doctors' referrals, not on insurance, and we can't be the first ones bringing it up. That's all. All I did was move it down the conversation. It freaks. You ought to see. There's probably nothing that freaks front desk people out more than moving the doctor referral question, insurance question down. But it doesn't matter if we don't take their insurance. I'm like, but you just made that statement. It matters to you, not them. Oh, it does matter to them. I go, let's flip it and see. Right. And then it just becomes a test. Well, let's flip it and see. If you're right, cool. We'll change it. And then there's a way to have if we understand the result we want, the experience, the emotional connection we want, right, to create, then we can ask the insurance question differently. Do you have insurance versus how do you want to pay for this? Or at the beginning, what I've done for some of these clinics is we move the insurance question up. But again, it's so, Jerry, were you looking at using insurance for this? So that's more of an inquiry about how do you want to pay, not do you have insurance? So again, and that's based on understanding the experience you want to create. And for those clinics, the insurance was very important. I said, okay, but we're not going to make it the first thing we ask, because then you're telling the patient, right, the experience you want them to have, which is if your insurance covers it, you should show up. And if it doesn't, you shouldn't. And when it runs out, we'll be done. So don't make it the priority, but make it a question around the fact that you want them to understand that they are the most important person to you, how they're going to pay, what the problems they want solved, what are their expectations, what are their goals, their experience, the emotional connection, the story they are creating as they move through their journey in your business. Understand your patient's life cycle, build out the systems and processes to create the experience you want your customer, client, patients to have. Cheers.